Welcome to Phantom Zoned, the podcast where we dredge the lakes of hell in search of the worst the cinematic world has to offer and put on trial for its sins. Should a film be found not guilty, it will be allowed to frolic freely for the enjoyment of all mankind. But if a film is found guilty, it will be jettisoned into the far, far reaches of space. A phantom zone, if you will. I'm your host, Adrian Torres, and joining me, as always, is my good space penal colony whatever friend, Scott Daly. How you doing, Scott?
I can't believe you just called me a space penal. It's really messed up. I'm doing good, Adrian. You changed the intro again. Just changing it all the time.
Well, I had to make sure to point out what happens to a film if it's, not guilty. I mean, it's kind of obvious, but we've never really said it, so I didn't want anyone on the internet to ever be like, "Oh no, what happens to that film? It's not guilty." Is it just stuck laboring away in the middle of nowhere? No.
Yes.
We put it back out to the populace.
I guess.
It's not just the two of us this time, because we are starting our charge forward that we talked about a month ago, where we were going to have a series of different guests come on that were going to be female filmmakers, female film writers, female critics, female podcasters, female hosts, everything, just to show inclusivity and, widen our horizons and have different voices, because it's just Scott and I talking about bad movies. Anybody can do that. Well, as long as they survive the movie, of course. So we are glad to have our good friend, Dede. Dede, how do you pronounce your last name? Because I don't want to mess it up.
Oh, it's Crimmins. It's not that complicated.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I didn't want to sound stupid.
I appreciate that.
So Dede is how would you describe what you do online?
Online. I usually just say I'm a film critic because people just kind of are like, oh, okay, and then that's about it. Yeah. I don't go for like journalist or anything like that. I just talk about movies.
And you have bylines all over the place.
I do. I freelance around. So I technically I think the title is staff writer, but I don't actually they don't have a staff. So I'm just a mostly writer for a website called filmthrills.com, but I also contribute regularly to Rue Morgue magazine, both on print and online, which is great because it's a physical copy that I can give to my dad to prove that I've done something with my life. And then also for Birth Movies Death, I also write for a feminist website called bitchflix.com. So yeah, I write all around.
Yes. So, much higher in standing compared to Scott and I. So.
Oh.
I thought you were just going to say compared to Scott. And I was like, hey now, don't just throw me under the bus.
She's listing places that people have heard of.
Yeah.
Even if they've just tangentially heard of them, that they perk up and they're like, I think I know what that is. That's a lot better than if it's just like, oh yeah, this is where I write for. They'd be like, I don't know what that is.
I've heard of where you write for, Adrian.
Because I've told it to you, Scott.
Well, that's marketing. That's marketing.
Well, I always feel I love Rue Morgue, but I always feel like, no, I've got a boyfriend in Canada. He goes to a different school, because it is a Canadian publication. But it's real. Yeah. I swear you can get it like Barnes & Noble. It exists.
Yeah, no, the Rue Morgue is the really cool thing. And if people haven't checked it out, definitely do. Because it's been around for a while. And it's kind of one of those, I want to call it one of the last mainstays for that type of genre. That when you used to have Starlog and Fangoria would be always on the market. Rue Morgue kind of fits into that.
Yeah, and print media is definitely dying out, but Rue Morgue, as far as I know, is holding strong, and they're you can go get it on newsstands. That's exciting.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
But the first thing that I'm going to say with Dede is she gets to kind of prove a point. Everyone gives me a hard time when they think that I just choose films for Scott to watch just to torture the man. I usually give him several options, or I give him a chance to suggest something, and then he just gives up in the end and just says, you pick something, damn it. And
it's called plausible deniability, Adrian.
No one's going to believe that, so you failed. So with Dede, what we decided to do was give her a list of movies that we kind of had rumbling around our head, and that would be easy to get a hold of or easy to view, just so we weren't inconveniencing the guests that we had come on, besides the movie that they were going to be watching. So I sent a list to Dede, and she actually picked the movie for this week. which is a 1990 film, literally from 1990, called Alienator. And it very much fits into that VOD landscape of terrible, terrible knockoff films that people made. Because if you think Alienator, you're thinking Terminator. Except for this time it's a lady, which doesn't really fit into the alien part, but
no. I've actually seen Lady Terminator, which is a delight compared to this atrocity.
Yes. That's a weird one too.
Lady Terminator is amazing.
Well, no. I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's not what you would think of when it comes to like a traditional, regular, everyday film.
No. I don't think you would think of Alienator either as a everyday film.
No. I'm going to ruin Scott's world for a second here, in that the director of this movie, Fred Olen Ray, actually directed a film that we've already done on the show.
What? Really?
He did Sniper Special Ops.
Is that the
Steven Seagal
one? Oh my God.
If anybody remembers that episode, if you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. It's a movie in which
oh my God.
Steven Seagal sits down for 80% of the film, and in the two scenes where his character is supposed to go downstairs to go outside, they use a stunt double to go down and upstairs.
Now, are you guys being mindful at all at the current like landmine situation when it comes to sexual crimes that are coming out about a lot of the people who have starred in / directed films that you might talk about?
I mean, it depends. If it's something that comes out that we know of at the time, then I think we definitely address it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, I feel like I need like a special ticker that adds it to like a Google Drive document or like a Google Word document. Because at this point, I feel like if I haven't looked at the news in about 12 hours, I've probably missed 2 or 3.
That is true.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just you guys saying Seagal made me be like, oh, wait.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a thing.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was several months ago. When
it was almost a year ago, I think. That was one of the earlier ones. Yeah.
So that's why it was weird seeing that this guy directed that, because it's also like completely. It's directed different from that film. Like this film, somebody's trying and failing. That film, Sniper Special Ops, is where someone's entirely given up.
Yeah, in the 15 or so years, he just gave up on life.
He's just been completely destroyed by the system and everything. And he's like, I went from doing VOD films that were, I guess, kind of funny to now I'm working with Steven Seagal and Rob Van Dam. So... Yeah,
I like how you got me looking at the Sniper Special. This is a complete tangent, but now I'm looking at the Sniper Special Ops poster, and I forgot that it says Seagal and Van Damme on it, as if trying to fool people into thinking it's Jean-Claude.
But no, it's the wrestler turned actor. Yes,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I have to say, you guys have caught me on a very unique night. I literally just got in the door from a screening of The Room.
Oh.
Which I do not like bad movies. They're doing a press blitz right now to make sure that all of the press who are going to be seeing The Disaster Artist and the coming weeks have actually seen The Room. And they gave everyone a free beer, which I think was a really good decision. So there was like a lot of spoons being thrown. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Was this the first time you'd seen it?
Okay, so I'd seen it before, but it was probably 10 years ago, and I cannot guarantee my level of sobriety. So I don't really have a really firm memory of what the film was actually about, but I know I've seen it.
Yeah.
So I just literally left the theater and then got right up on this recording, and and reality doesn't quite make sense to me right now.
You're just in a bad movie blitz today.
I know. And I started like my coffee with Alienator this morning. I was tweeting at you guys and I was like, what the hell are you guys doing to me here? Like, I realized that it's my decision, but it's kind of like, which piece of rotting fruit do you want? It's like, it's going to be awful.
Yeah, that's why I literally said, pick your poison, if you will.
You actually did say that, like literally. And I chose a very special version of poison.
When it comes to the other movies that were on the list, we're going to be doing over the next several weeks. We'll talk about one at the very end that our guest for next week just picked. But this was probably one of the least worst films on that list that I gave you. So you got off light. The one that's
It
on
doesn't
there.
feel like it.
Oh no! If you saw the trailer for the one that's on there, that's called The Black Knight Returns. It's a level of ineptitude that is shocking. If you've seen anything about Birdemic, picture like three levels below it.
No.
Yeah.
No, I have no interest in that.
But we're talking about Alienator, so you're safe. The voodoo is how we watched it, as we often do, because it was free and because it looked terrible. But their synopsis is to kill or be killed. That is the question for an evil alien criminal fleeing his galactic execution. I don't know why they went with Shakespeare there. There's no Shakespeare connection to the film.
No, it's not Shakespearean at all.
No.
IMDb does dig its fingers like more underneath the surface and says Cole is an evil guy about to be executed on a distant spaceship. He manages to escape on a shuttle and make his way to some woods in America. The commander of this, very specific. The commander of the spaceship decides to send out the Alienator to execute Cole at all costs. Cole meets up with some teens and Ward Armstrong, and together they try not to get killed by the pursuing woman of death, the Alienator.
It's very strange to me that both of these synopses are just like totally upfront with Cole being evil, since the movie tries to play like that's not the case for a long
only one
time.
Person.
Did you guys not see his eye makeup?
The raccoon makeup?
The raccoon makeup makes it incredibly clear that he's evil.
I thought he was just a wino.
Well, yeah. Also, who uses the word wino? This is not the 70s. Like,
This is the second movie that we've had recently that's used the phrase wino. There was a main character of 2 episodes back for Blood Ring where everybody constantly called the main character Max the Wino.
Okay.
Well, there you go. So the answer to your question, Dede, is bad screenwriters use the word wino.
Yeah. I think I first learned the word wino in Mel Brooks' Silent movie.
Yes.
Yeah, that I think was the beginning and end of my relationship with the word wino. I do have to take it back, though, when I said that this wasn't Shakespearean. I think there is like a very forced Shakespearean twist at the very end, which you guys are cool with spoilers for like a film that's old enough to drink, right? Okay.
Yeah. Throw it out there.
Yeah, so at the end, I think, I'm sure we'll get to it, but the whole like, no, that's my son, like that's a little Shakespearean.
I guess.
Yeah.
And he's wearing robes, so like I kind of get like, I don't think that Voodoo is that aware of the ending because they probably didn't watch the film long enough to get to the ending in order to write the synopsis. But in a stretch, I'd be willing to give it that.
Yes. We'll go into him because he's one of my favorite characters in the film.
He's something.
The movie has 3 taglines. 2 of them you're like, and then there's one that's been discussed on the internet before, just because reading it aloud hurts your brain. One of them was the Ultimate Terminator, and that's because, of course, you got Alienator, and you've got a female robotic cyborg killing machine, and the actress who played the Alienator actually was a former bodybuilder who wanted to become the female Arnold Schwarzenegger, so ties into that. The other poster tagline was an android hunter from outer space is about to create hell on Earth. Works.
It's accurate.
Yeah.
Wait a second. So if Cole's so evil, isn't he bringing hell to Earth when he comes to Earth?
Yes. That's yeah.
Well, he's bringing her, and she's going to create the hell on Earth.
I realize
when he shows up, he just can't breathe.
No, I realize that I'm at risk of overthinking it because no one has thought that much about this film, but like.
I have. I wrote a note that it actually says, there's actually a note in my notes that says, wait, am I actually overthinking this film?
I know. I'm like, maybe between the 3 of us, we're putting way more thought than the actual filmmakers did into this, but I'm like, okay, I can step back from that.
Don't feel bad. Here's the last one. In deep space, the deadliest animal is still woman.
Oof.
So by deep space, they mean Earth here? Because they just said the android hunter comes to bring hell on Earth. So, like, I don't know which it is.
Well, they're also referring, saying that a woman is an animal.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
I'm not going to disagree with that.
by definition.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but still saying, when you say deadliest animal and then you say woman, you're like, not exactly where I thought you were going.
Not the crack marketing team you would think they'd put on a movie like this.
Is it deep space or is it Earth? I'm really focused on this right now.
It's both.
It starts out in deep space and then it winds up on Earth.
And then they run out of budget, so it has to be on Earth.
Oh, you mean the people from Amazing Movies Presents?
Also, according to IMDb, quote, some woods in America is... Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Well, you can't specify which woods.
Exactly.
Yeah, just some woods.
Some woods. You don't want to get in trouble. So the film opens with, like I said, it's made by a company that's called Amazing Pictures. So you know that the quality of their film is going to be anything but that. They're setting themselves up for failure, basically. At the same time, they have a scrawl on the opening credits, which, you know, for a film like this is not going to be a good sign. And did you guys catch or write down what it said?
No, I did not.
I did note that there was this scrawl of exposition at the beginning, and then they didn't have the title or the actors introduced until about 10 minutes in.
13 minutes in, I marked it. I was like, whoa, what is going on here? Mm-hmm. It says, in a far-off corner of the galaxy, a well-armed rebel battalion ambushes the armies of the great tyrant Baal. A massacre ensues. Thousands of innocents perish, and the leader of their rebellion, Cole, is captured and sentenced to die. Today, on a dark prison planet where no man has ever escaped, the commanding executioner appears to send his prisoners straight to hell.
So see, this makes it seem like Cole is a good guy because he's leading the rebellion against the tyrant Baal. But
yes,
but then the rest of the movie says no.
For all we know, Lund is the person who wrote this.
Yeah, you're probably right.
The very first thought that I had, like the second the movie opens up from that, is cheap ass Star Trek sets. Like there was some super fan of Star Trek that somehow was able to spend a whole bunch of money on like a B set from some episode and then put it up in a storage unit or a garage, and that's where the beginning of the film takes place. Because like where they have the cell and everything, it just looked really cheap at first, and then once they got into Cole's his cell, and you could tell that it was basically like a garage or a storage unit door is what they were banging up against.
Yeah, shockingly, they did not have the great set dressing that you'd expect from a movie that costs what, $300? How much did this movie cost?
That seems generous.
See, I became really focused on the costuming very early on because I didn't want to pay attention to anything else that was happening. So like Cole was wearing a very puffy, it's not quite a vest because it's got more of a collar and shoulder area than a typical vest, but it was very shiny. And then PJ Souls has this odd thing where there's like anything but cleavage is cut out. Like it's just like upper boob. Like I'm not quite sure if that's the best area of a woman to highlight, but you definitely couldn't look anywhere else.
No.
But, like, the tops of her breasts. Like it was interesting.
Anyone who might be saying, what, huh? And is confused. Yes, Dede did say PJ Souls. PJ Souls, of course, from Carrie, from Halloween, from Rock and Roll High School, is in this film. And what I thought about her outfit is that something that she wore from home? Or is that like, did the character come to work dressed as that, saying, oh, I'm just going to wear this? Or is that like her uniform? Yeah,
I mean, it seems like a uniform, but nobody else is wearing anything like that.
Else. People are lab jackets at a couple points.
And then there's that, like, I don't know, the father figure that I'll just call him that. Like we can get out of the way from it, but that guy who just shows up, he's like, no, I'm just here. And he's wearing like these like robes that are kind of Jedi-like.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a great, like, with the 5-minute mark of the film, he literally just turns the corner when he walks in and says, "I am Lund," and then and they're like, "Okay, that's great. I guess you're the guy we were expecting." But I wrote, someone spliced John Wayne and Lee Van Cleef's DNA into a weird offspring that somehow inherited Marlon Brando's wardrobe.
That's a very complicated combination of things, Adrian.
But it's how it is, because the guy kind
wrong.
of, yeah, the guy's got the mustache and like the facial structure of Lee Van Cleef, but he talks like John Wayne, and then he dresses as if Marlon Brando had an obsession with Harry Mudd from Star Trek.
He's just there.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he announces his presence and then tells everyone to pretend like he's not there. Yeah. He could have just like sat there and no one would have noticed him.
Yeah, or they could have just been like, "Oh, it's this guy," and like not done anything, like not paid that much attention to him.
Well, the movie doesn't really pay that much attention to him.
No, but he's just there. Another casting choice that really stuck out to me was it Joseph Pilato? I don't know how to pronounce his last name. The tech number 2, who's Rhodes from Day of the Dead.
And he basically takes mugging to an art form in this film. He knows that he doesn't have many lines, and so he's like, every time you see him, he's always really close to or hanging over somebody's shoulder so that he's perfectly framed in the screen. And he's just like yeah. Uh-huh.
If PJ Souls wasn't there, I would say he was like the Uhura of this ship, because he just like sees what's going on the computer, but he's not showing that much skin, so he can't quite take that place.
Walking in with his black felt square bandana thing on their uniform.
Yes.
There's like 7 different uniforms on this ship. That's what bothered me. I couldn't tell who anybody was, but it doesn't matter because we only spend like 5 minutes from there, because Cole, through magic, you're basically led to believe in the first several minutes of the film, is able to escape. Part of the way that he's able to escape is he notices that somehow one of the earworms from the second Star Trek film has infiltrated his cell, and he has several of them also in a bag in the corner.
Just a paper bag chilling in the corner of his cell.
And he has telekinesis too, or we're led to believe, right?
Yes, minor telekinesis. But he
just a touch of telekinesis.
Just a hint. But he's got the bag that he smashes on the guy's face, so that the 3 bugs get in this one guy's face, and that's how he's able to escape.
Yeah, like it's like there's like a comedy of people being completely unaware of people behind them, like, because he sneaks up on this guy and does it while the guy is sneaking up on him. I don't know why nobody just shoots people. They all have guns.
Oh. Well, when they try to shoot people, like, Cole stands perfectly still on the platform, has people on both sides of him who are shooting and continually missing. So it's not so much that he's successful, because usually when he fires at them, the person's precariously perched on like the side of the balcony already to begin with. So if he hits that, that's what causes them to fly off.
Yeah, and he has the guy you're talking about. I wrote this down because he has the biggest delayed reaction between when the effect on him goes off and he actually like reacts and falls down. It's wonderful.
Now, bug face?
Yes. Good old bug face.
Oh, good old bug face. Yeah, he just has bugs applied to his face and then freaks out and then falls over.
And it takes forever for them to burrow into his face because they don't have enough money to have the best effects, so they have to cut back to something else going on and then cut back to his face where some tech has come off over like 2 seconds later and push them further into his face.
And that's the only time that like bugs really come into the plot of this film. Like they could have a whole like bug warfare situation going on, but no.
It's too expensive.
No, we don't know. You have bugs that are just crawling around in space. Yeah, you probably have an infestation, and you should look into it. I don't know. The beginning of this film is strange because the whole point of everything that's going on is they've got executions all the time,
vaporizing.
Exactly. The commander of the place, who's played by none other than Jan Michael Vincent. So any of you who saw the tweet when we were getting ready for this episode and we mentioned to Michael down your Vincents is because, of course, it's the reason that we have the the lovable little sketch or piece of Rick and Morty with the Jan Quadrant Vincent 16 comes from this gentleman right here, who is sauced out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
all his scenes.
Oh, he's so
it's
drunk.
It's either he's trying to do a really good Clint Eastwood impression, or he's barely on the edge of consciousness.
Well, and my favorite part of that is he has a line early in this where he says, "We have a serious mandate here. There's no room for sloppiness." And he as he's saying that, he's slurring his words. So he's saying, there's no room for sloppiness.
We do get a hallmark of Phantom Zone, and that at the 3-minute point is when Jan Michael Vincent breaks into Cole's cell and kicks him straight in the nuts.
Is this the earliest nut kick in history of Phantom Zone?
No, because Blood Ring has it at like the 45-second mark.
It's true.
I'm really impressed that you guys know this.
It's very
happens
important
in the majority of these movies, because that's lowest common denominator comedy. that happens is being like, oh, we're gonna have something happen to somebody's nuts. It's either just gonna be a kick to the nuts, or something's gonna happen, and then somebody's like, oh, that's really gotta hurt. But Jan Michael Vincent makes the comment that the planet that they're on, which then later gets downgraded to a station as opposed to a planet, is we are the toilet of the interplanetary penal colonies. It's just our job to flush them.
It's just wonderful dialogue. I don't know what you're complaining about here.
Oh man.
Well, I mean, it's weird because he seems to have a vendetta, especially against Cole, because he's getting ready to kill another inmate when he decides, oh yeah, bring Cole over here. I want him to see what he's in for. And it's like, he's in this place that's known for executing people. I'm pretty sure he knows what's going to happen. He doesn't need to see it. And the only reason that they show it is because I guess they thought it was impressive special effects, but it looks terrible.
He's not good.
He glows and then he just disappears.
He disappears. That's a running theme in the movie. But so Cole...
If you could do that, why would you ever be in jail?
Yeah.
Like, why would you need to do, like, bug face situations?
I don't.
There are no answers. There are far more questions
There are.
than answers. So, like, just moving on, I'm going to throw shit out there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also I did want to say that the commander, I thought he was like a proto Mickey Rourke, kind of, like the way he was acting exclusively. And like, it was like cheekbones and lips, and like that's all it was.
and like a starting of aged leather across the face.
Yes, yeah. Like you look at him and you're like, he should be like drop dead handsome, but like there's just like something that's not quite adding up, and it's the fact that he can't move his eyebrows.
I have no idea what your age is. You're either 32 or 75.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both of them are kind estimates either way. So, so Cole gets off the ship, and to which they're very, very lethargically disappointed, because Jan Michael Vincent makes a comment. He's like, if we don't get him now, we're gonna lose him completely. We lost him. And they have that beat too. Like, there's plenty of different times where people have this setup with, I don't know if it's a setup to a joke, or if something, like there was a line that somebody forgot, but there's a whole bunch of different points where somebody ends up like just, and then the scene's done.
It's weird because like the summary establishes that nobody has ever escaped from this prison before, and he
does it quite easily.
It's not like his plan was that complicated. It's like he hit a few people, he threw some bugs at a guy, and then he got away.
And he's just like, I dreamed of Jeannie'd his way out of there.
Yeah.
That's not a plan.
No, it's not at all. Well, I mean, and it like the way they set it up, they also make it kind of seem like maybe something like this has happened before, because the commander then goes, we need to send out the hunting unit. And then the guy who you mentioned too, of course, I'm forgetting his name, just goes, like he's really excited that they're going to send out, the hunting unit to go track down and kill this guy. And that's when it breaks into the opening credits at the 13-minute point.
And you wouldn't have a hunting unit unless you knew that something eventually would need to get hunted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I see what they're doing. They planned for failure, and they needed to because they failed.
Yeah. Though they everything in this movie fails. It feels
Including
like
they failed us.
yes. Well, they failed the credits too because the poor credits keep on rolling with the same piece of music that feels like it's 45 seconds on repeat.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the music because it's basically just tones and then like just slamming your face into a keyboard, and that's it. It's like dun 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 dun, and that's it. That's it.
Just constant repeating.
Yep.
If anybody, I don't know if you guys have seen or are you familiar with the Final Sacrifice from MST3K, the episode?
No.
It's got Rouse Dower is the famous character from that one. But the music's very reminiscent of that episode. If you get to watch it sometime, you'll very much notice we have no money for music and we created this one MIDI file and that's all we've got. It's very much like that. It's just hit repeat on everything that we've got. And they're like, well, we only have 3 things. It's like, okay, hit repeat on this one for 15 minutes and that one for 15 minutes and it'll work out. It'll be fine. Trust me.
Did you guys ever see Dangerous Men? I know it showed a Fantastic Fest a couple years ago.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So that kind of reminded me of just like not the fact that it played over the dialogue to the point where you couldn't hear it because that was not the case here, but just the fact that it was the exact same thing regardless of tone of scene, just playing over and over again.
Yeah, and there's weird points where like the music, like at the very beginning, there's like trumpet blows when the commander is punching Cole in the stomach, but not for every single one of them. It's like it goes for some of them, but not all of them.
Again, they could only buy 3 sound effects, and they had to dole it out. You know, they couldn't continually have the same one.
I don't have the sophisticated caroling keyboard that Scott has.
Yeah. If I had it ready, I could press it right now. But
I know you failed us too.
I know.
Thanks. You're just as bad as Alienator.
I know.
Oh, that's a really terrible insult.
Yeah, jeez.
But a terrible insult is when we meet, I guess, the heroes of the film or the people that we spend the majority of the time with. What's his face? Rick and the RV gang, basically.
High-waisted jeans gang.
Yes, that's a good one.
Yeah. Again, I'm really focused on the costuming of that first.
It's okay. I was focused on the accent and the dialect. So when Rick started talking, and when he makes the comment, I always drive better when I've had a few brews. But the way his like accent lilts, I was like, oh, is this a Canadian film? They sound like, and then they go around to everybody. I'm like, everybody sounds vaguely Canadian. If this wasn't made in Canada, then it was either made in like North Dakota or Minnesota. And then 20 minutes later, somebody goes, oh, I need to run this through the LAPD database. And I was like, whoa. Where are you taking place? What location? We're in California.
I also almost spit out my coffee when one of the kids says, like, I'm pre-law. I'm like, you look like you've been divorced twice.
Yeah, like
that's Rick. That's Rick.
Yeah, because I'm like, there's no way this guy isn't 40. And they're like talking about how they're going to go to college soon. I'm like, I can't handle that. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's absolutely no way these guys were shy of 40.
Yeah, the IMDb summary lists them as teens, and I was like, what? Teens? Come on.
No, I didn't read it before I watched it, but literally he's just like, so I'm pre-law, and I had to choke my coffee back.
No offense to Rick, but it's very much reflect. Rick would be somebody who would not be thriving in today's world. Because if he became a lawyer or was still living in LA, he would definitely be one of the people that sexual harassment allegations were coming out against.
Yeah, I think most of the people in this film would fall into that category.
Are you going to see? I can't remember the kid's name because he didn't have like any other defining characteristics except for
he had the glasses guy.
But yeah,
he was the one that came up with the brilliant net idea.
Well, he knew like everything throughout the movie, and they never explained how he had any of this information.
Why?
Like he was just the nerdy guy, and I'm just like, so he knows it because he wears glasses? I don't know anything about his character. I don't know is he a dork? Or...
Yeah, he's the nerdy into sci-fi guy, so he just is like fully accepts all the aliens and weird shit that's happening.
Happens to have poor eyesight all at the same time.
Yeah.
Oh, what a sad individual.
I know. But the problem. Okay, we can get to the net at some point when it actually becomes a plot point, assuming there is a plot.
No, there isn't, because it's things that happen, because like while this is going on, Cole has crashed his ship. They end up grazing him with the van. They think he's dead because he doesn't understand the concept of how to breathe. Or act outside of the concept of not being able to breathe. So
he can will himself to either deep outer space or the Earth, depending on which way you're looking at it. But he can't breathe.
No.
Yeah, well, like he's like choking on the collar, right? Like that's what we're supposed to think.
Oh yeah, he's got the tracking collar. I don't think we've talked. Have we talked about this yet?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I was going to bring it up because of this.
Oh, okay. I'm like, perfect timing. So.
Well, no, because that's when he stumbles out of the ship, and the entire reason why they hit him is partly because Rick has had like probably 5 or 6 beers at this point, but he's stumbling through the woods and by the road because he's got 2 fingers in the collar, and then he's just hacking and stumbling. Like they don't seem like they should be going together because he's had the collar on for a while, so he's been choking or mildly suffocating for a while, but he's acting as if like his entire body is just now shutting down. And this it's the biggest production too.
This really annoys me too, because nobody in this movie like he's clearly like making choking noises and pulling on the collar, and nobody says anything about the collar until we get to way later in the movie where no one tries to help him out. No one says, I think that collar might be choking him or something. Nobody does anything. They just kind of stare at him.
He's a normal looking guy. Like aside from the raccoon makeup, like he clearly is the human or human adjacent.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, look at the way he's dressed.
Yeah, no, it's just, he's really far out. But, also, the fact that, like, at one point, one of the characters, maybe it's Rick, I forget who, is like, oh, it looks like he's a kung fu movie when he's talking. And we're supposed to, like, somehow think that his dialogue is getting translated, but it doesn't. He looks just totally normal when he's talking.
Yeah.
That was probably Rick then, because Rick, every other sentence that he has is a throwaway zinger line.
Yeah, I'm like, no, you can't fool me. I can see him with my own eyes, and he looks like a totally normal, well, I mean, aside from the raccoon makeup and the really puffy vest, like, he doesn't look that weird.
No.
Even
but
like
they're all not sure. So they decide they're going to take him to a ranger's office that's nearby. And then we decide to spend 7 minutes with 2 hunters that feel as if they just fell out of either Hee Haw or Mayberry RFD.
God, what was this scene? It's so annoying. There's just nothing here.
No, and they come back too, and there's no reason for them to.
Yeah.
They're like, it's like somebody was like, hey, what's that thing that people have, in the movies or the plays all the time where they're like talking about stuff that's going on? Like they call them a Greek chorus, right? What if we do that with 2 hunters and they don't describe anything that's going on in the actual film? Is that the same thing? Okay, we're going to do that.
They just want to eat that rabbit. That's all they want.
Oh yeah, that's not necessary.
You've got
carnage.
One guy who's over the top, and then you've got the second guy who's even more over the top, and the second guy who's existing on another plane is the guy that they do the in memoriam for at the very end of the film.
Oh yeah, did they refer to him as a warden at one point?
I don't.
At one point, because there's like they find the main cop ranger guy, and at one point, someone asked him like, "Are you going to call the cops?" He's like, "I am a cop," which is
Yeah, he's a game warden. He's a game warden.
Warden, okay.
And his name is Ward. Which really threw me off for like an hour, because I was like,
Ward Armstrong.
Are they calling him Warden and just slurring it a lot? And I was like, no, his name is just Ward. It's really confusing.
His outfit was not interesting enough for me to pay that much attention to his character. So I was just like,
just because it was a ranger's outfit?
Yeah, it was just, okay, there, check. Like, you're in the woods, you look like you're in the woods, moving on.
Yeah, he like it says on his sign that he does the game and wildlife preserve. Okay. And they bring to him this guy who's having trouble breathing, and he's like, "No, I got it. I'll take care of it." It's like, but you don't deal with people.
Yeah.
And why is your response is that like, "Hey, listen, I need to get a statement from you guys, even if you didn't do anything wrong, and I need to run your license plate through the LAPD database." And I'm like,
why do you have access to that database? You're a game warden.
Yeah. What rangers are able to do that?
Also, the man is clearly choking. Help him with his choking problem. I'm not going to get over that.
Well, no, 'cause at that point he's not choking because he's doing the weird thing where he's laying back with his mouth completely open, and every like 30 to 45 seconds he shoots up.
He did that a lot.
Yeah, and they never said he had a pulse, which means they were either just really bad at taking pulses, or he just doesn't have a pulse, I guess.
Yes.
But do we have any reason to believe he's not human? Like, I keep coming back to this.
No.
Well,
Okay.
In the next scene is when the Alienator finally shows up, and when you look at the Alienator, you think maybe that person's not human.
I don't know. The first scene with the Alienator is like a huge wide shot where we just see her tiny in the corner of the frame, and you can't really even see her.
With the ship with the horrible model ship.
Yeah.
That she looks really small in comparison to the ship, but the ship magically looks small in comparison to everything around it.
Yeah.
And she's basically. Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
I was going to say she's basically an Amazonian fembot.
Yeah.
Yes, but in that shot, she appears to be like 4 inches tall. And it's not just because of like the way it's set up, but like the ship itself looks like it's smaller than the trees that are in there, and then she's even smaller than that. So it's just it's bad model work, and it's crappy. But then she takes her time plodding along in her giant white fright wig, metal like face thing, and then her metal bikini.
Yeah, and her foundation on her face is much lighter than that on the rest of her body.
Yes.
If anyone's paying attention.
See, that's a thing that I never would have noticed. So thank you. Thank you.
You could kind of tell. When she, especially when she's in like when there's direct light on her, you can tell. Mm-hmm. But maybe there's a chance, Scott, that you were distracted by whatever was going on the top half of the bikini.
The bottom half was pretty exciting too, in Scott's defense.
I was distracted by the weird lightsaber noise that was emanating from her constantly. It's the lightsaber hum just comes.
Was it her or was it from the gun?
I don't know.
Is there a difference? Where do you draw the line there?
Well, as we learned, like, because at first I didn't think it was a gun, and I thought it was part of her arm. But then, like, halfway through the film, she just casually takes it off. I'm just like, oh, this isn't working. I'm going to take this off for a minute.
Hey, you can't pet a deer with a gun, Adrian.
That was
non-threatening.
Just that whole sequence, because she's killed somebody, which we'll go over in a second because it's one of my favorite moments of the film. But she kills somebody and then is walking through the forest and firing at these other people, and she ends up getting a stick lodged in her foot, because in the weirdest contradiction of the film, they make several comments about the fact that Cole doesn't know anything about Earth, but in a horrible ADR line, he tells them, "Oh, maybe some punji sticks will slow her down."
Yeah.
And so they make a little punji pit with the stick sticking out of it, and sure enough, she steps on one of them, and she has to take off her shoe after she pulls part of the spike out. And then you see her mangled foot, and then she pulls the spike out, and then her foot gets better, and then her mind recalibrates, and she stares at a deer, and it says it's non-threatening, so she pets it for 5 minutes.
Okay, we need to throw this in reverse for one hot second. The foot design, I could not look away from it, because her foot, when it had a stick through it, was incredibly tiny, and all of the toes were fused. I'm sure you guys picked up on this.
Yeah,
I couldn't look away from it.
It was
it's
the weirdest
really,
prosthetic, yeah.
It's weird. It's a horrible prosthetic, and it's right in the front of the frame, and you can't look at anything but this weird fake like mannequin foot.
And it almost seems like angled improperly. Like it didn't look like that's the direction it would be if she was really like
Nothing
crossing her
like
leg. And it was very uncomfortable. And also
nothing was right about that foot.
They describe her as having yellow blood later, but there's definitely red blood when she's pulling the stick out. Like it's red.
Well, it's okay. This was one of the points where I went, okay, I'm thinking way too much about the movie. Is that I think that was several different things because of how thin the foot would be in that area, and just compared to a whole bunch of different parts of the body, that I think whatever the robotics or whatever were sticking through there. So it wasn't just the yellowness, but then was the inside of the foot that was marking up around it. And that,
dear God, you did think about this too much.
The foot, hold on, the foot being mangled together looked like that because it was damaged. Because then once she's pulled it completely out, they go to a shot that's wide and far away, and you can see that it's her actual foot now. And my mind said, oh, she's self-healing. So since her foot was stabbed, it looked all mangled up. But then when she took it out, it was able to heal back over that, and now it looks like a normal foot for that reason.
Adrian,
the mental gymnastics that you're doing to defend this horrible film are really impressive, and I will give you kudos for that. But like,
it's not defending it. It's just how it works.
It was just a bad prop. It's just bad.
It was a really terrible prop. They literally bought a mannequin foot, and like if you go to the mall, like they don't have toes that separate either, which is why flip flops do not work. Like it's just this horrible, weird, and she's a giant, gorgeous woman, and there's this tiny little weird mangled foot that they stuck a stick through and dripped the wrong color blood onto. And the second it's her actual foot, she like flexes her toes, and it's like, oh, okay, now I see exactly how awful that prosthetic was.
But it's a movie that doesn't really put thought into anything, because I'm confused. I'm not sure if you guys were able to like find a connective tissue, because they never mention it. But anytime the Alienator is coming around, while she does suck electricity from everything, Cole's able to sense it, but to various degrees. If she's somewhere and she kills somebody, then Cole feels it. Is it because of the collar that he has, or is there some weird symbiosis?
My guess was the collar. That she's tracking him with the collar, and whenever she does anything or activates tracking mode, for some reason that alerts the person being tracked, which makes no sense at all, but it's this movie, so I'm not
I
gonna
thought
question
it was more of his like telekinesis that they keep picking up and dropping.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if that guy can transport himself down to Earth or outer space, whichever we're deciding that it is, he might be able to pick up on something like that.
I mean, it could be that. I just like there was like at one point he cries out in pain, grabs the collar, and then says she's coming, and then they immediately mention the tracking device. So that's why I put those together. But who knows? Who knows?
So at one point he grabs the collar and screams out in pain.
At 37 points he grabs the collar.
There we go. Yeah.
Wait, while he's not choking, like that's the few times that he's not choking. Hey, remember when about 30 minutes ago we mentioned that things were in space?
Yes.
Because the movie decides that it should probably remind you about that too, and jumps back into space. And we get a series of weird and awkward scenes. The first of which has Jan Michael Vincent interrogating PJ Souls, and then coming on to her because they used to date, and she is forced to say the phrase, "You can't force me to love you," or you can't order me to love you, Commander.
Whoever wrote that is so damn proud of themselves.
It's so awkward. And then Lund randomly just walks into the room. And he's like, "Oh, didn't see you there. Please continue. That looks fun."
Oh.
It's so weird. And like, why is this here? This doesn't matter at all.
No.
And then PJ Souls gets kicked out of the room, and they focus on the fact that in space, this commander has gotten like 5 different criminal justice degrees from space universities, and like it's on the wall, and they show it, and then Lund goes, "Oh, this is very impressive. You must be highly educated."
And they just look like community college diplomas. I mean, that's what they look like. It's like cheaply framed college degrees.
And
it's
then
really fun.
They have a really cheap knockoff of like Star Trek's 3D chess, but it's like 1D chess.
No, okay, I haven't thought about this before. Is there drywall in space? Like, how do you actually hang stuff up on the wall?
That's a good point. It's a space tape. Space tape. Clearly.
Space tape, magnets.
Yeah.
I have a lot of questions because most people don't hang up their crappy degrees in space. Or maybe people, if you're the goddamn commander, you don't have to like put forth a piece of paper to prove it.
You can just tell everybody. You just walk around and you start all conversations. So do you know that I have 7 space degrees in criminal justice? The conversation starter. God. You want to make your parents proud. You spent all their money. You got these degrees. God damn it, you're going to tell everybody about it.
You can't force me to love you, Commander.
Oh my God.
So back on Earth, they're still running from the Alienator. Oh, we forgot to mention, of course, it comes out of nowhere. The first kill that the Alienator does, because they decide, instead of checking over Cole himself, they're going to call the town drunk, who also happens to be the town doctor, to come and take a look at Cole. And when he shows up outside the cabin, the Alienator's there. He throws his arms up and everything and surrenders. And so she proceeds to shoot him. When she shoots him, it sets him on fire for about 5 minutes.
Oh my God. like
just rolling around and screaming to the point where the last shot is of his corpse still on fire. It has melted down completely to the skull and charred everything, and the body is still flopping on the ground.
It goes on for so long. And that's the only time that the gun does that. Because every other time... Every other time it just disintegrates people. Yeah. It's like they paid for this really expensive special effect, and they needed to use every second they shot of it.
And to cover it up, they have her bang on the gun at one point, and they have to add in like really crappy special effects like sparks because they couldn't time it correctly. So like she taps on it and then it looks like it's malfunctioning. And that's why she takes off the gun for a few minutes. But it never, while no one else ends up exploding, there is a point later on where she's firing it at the dirt, and it's like there's basically TNT underneath the ground.
So the spontaneous combustion setting on the gun got damaged, so she was forced to go to the disintegration setting, which feels like it would be the better one. I feel like that would be the default one.
While they're running through this giant forest, they end up coming across the cabin of this old war vet.
Oh my God.
Is from a completely different film too, it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a weird point. I'm not sure when it happened. I'm not sure how you guys felt about it, but it's a big thing to discuss with the film, where there's points where it feels like the movie knows that it's terrible and is trying to poke fun at how bad the things are, but no one really who wrote the film or is directing it or is guiding the actors understood how to convey that.
Yeah, I can see that point, especially with all the kids in the woods. Like, it's clearly trying to send up the whole, like, almost slasher genre, but then it is very earnest about the way these kids are, like, talking about themselves and dealing with each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think you're right there. The Colonel here seems to think that he's in the movie that's hilarious and making fun of all this stuff.
Yeah. Is he the one who's telling what's his face Rick to drink a lot?
I think so.
I forgot about that.
He's the one with the AK-47 that he took off of some North Vietnamese.
As you do.
Which and he makes the comment that they're like, oh no, guns aren't going to work against the Alienator, because up until then everybody had shotguns that they were using on her, and he picks up his AK-47. He's like, this thing can do the most damage in the world with the right person behind the trigger. Turns around, grabs another one, and he goes, this is a Magnum Weatherby. It'll stop a an elephant at 1,000 yards. And I'm like, hold on a second. You just talked about how the AK-47 was the most powerful thing, and now you're talking about how this gun can stop an elephant. I think that the one that can stop the elephant is going to be a bit more powerful.
Hey,
that might be what you want to use.
If you can stab the alienator in the foot with a stick, how come bullets don't work? I don't understand.
We should get like an Achilles situation with your tiny mangled feet.
I mean, I would say the armor, but there's not a lot of it.
Mm-mm.
Well, maybe in like the robot world or whatever, the Alienator, just like all the other of her ilk, were dipped upside down in a protective coating, except for the foot, just like Achilles.
No one's gonna go for the feet.
No. Maybe it's like a metal can't harm metal, but like sticks can.
I guess that's possible.
We'll buy it. We're talking about in this scene. They mention, or the colonel guy goes, "Oh, this guy's choking. Why isn't anybody trying to help him?" They're like, "Oh yeah, the collar, it won't come off. It's got a tracking device into it, and he says he just can't get it away." And then bang, the colonel shoots it off.
And that's
his neck, off his neck.
And that's when he became my favorite character in the movie. Because finally someone addressed the damn collar.
What? That's where I was confused. I'm like, now the film's joking about this? But what? Huh?
Yeah, I mean,
then he just starts giving everybody guns.
Yeah, and he has a mine in his cupboard.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's when they come up with the idea of, oh, hey, maybe we can stop her if we make some type of net.
Yeah. I don't get it. The line that the guy says after the net works is the greatest line in this movie, though.
If you can find it, we will drop it right in here. If not, then you just hear us continue talking.
Yeah. I mean, we'll definitely I have it written down. I have it written down, but I don't know if I have the clip.
Because I think I know which clip you're talking about. So we've got it because it's ridiculous. And again, it's the Poindexter guy. And so if you just heard it, then you understand that there's been no other point where he's talked about anything like this. Like, he's hypothesized about everything, but here he's like, oh, this is what's actually happening. And it's like, I don't.
Why does he know any of this?
Yeah, because he has glasses.
But it works, and they win.
Also, like this intergalactic, like Amazonian fembot thing, and a net will solve her. Like, net will take care of her. Like,
because it's stealing her electrons. The kid really likes talking about electrons too, because that's what he posits about Cole. Is he makes a comment. He's like, maybe he's able to suck the electrons of our thoughts from our brain.
I don't think he knows how particle physics works.
Yeah. Well, he's pre-particle physics.
Yeah, I was going to say that's the next space degree he's working for. He's only got 3 right now.
Oh my god. Well, if he, I remember he keeps talking about the electrons, and I'm just like, I don't think that's means what you think it means. But it sounds really smart, especially to the not very sophisticated 1990 Alienator audience.
Considering the fact that they decide that they want to have this net, they want to create this net, but then their plan to use the net is, we need somebody to be bait, and we're going to have people hiding all around here. So when the bait gets caught, then you can shoot the person and we'll throw the net on them. Mm-hmm. And they wait a long time when the Alienator grabs a Rick.
Yes.
And like, he's getting choked. And I was like, why isn't anybody acting? And we just saw her get out of the car. And she's like, no, I want to enjoy this for a second. I want to see him suffer. And then, like, I was imagining, like, had the Alienator, crushed the windpipe, then the girl would have shot the Alienator still in the back of the head and would have been like, oh no.
I was too slow. Rick, no.
Well, it's like one of those things, like, if you think it's stupid but it works, it's really not that stupid. I still think it's that stupid.
It is that stupid. It's that stupid.
Yeah. Yet again, we're constantly at risk of overthinking this film.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they throw the Alienator, the titular character of the film, into the back of a truck. because they're like, oh, we got to get rid of it. We got to move on, because there's a great piece of dialogue that just shows how they're willing to brush everything over. Because one character says, it's over. Another said, maybe we should cremate the body to be sure. The other one goes, well, and get rid of any of the evidence? And then the other character goes, yeah, you're right.
Well, there we go. That's the end of that discussion.
And you're like, okay. So the scene moves on. And it's like, oh, wait, we were making a movie that was an hour and a half, and we still have several minutes left. Oh, guess what? Cole's a bad guy. He is a bad guy after all. They totally should have executed him. Mm-hmm. He is now just a giant dick, and he's tried to lure Rick away with the promise of all the money he could ever want. And instead, we learn, for the people in the audience who don't look at dictionary words all the time, that to alienate also means to, for a transference. And so Cole ends up transferring him, or his likeness, or I guess Rick's likeness, to him. And so he becomes Rick, and he goes on for a short period of the film masquerading as Rick.
See, this is why I think they're not giving Cole's whatever superpowers he has enough credit.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, he doesn't really do anything with it, because he doesn't assimilate very well, because he's just like, I look like this guy. I'm going to say a few words like him. Now I'm really going to try to aggressively get it on with the kind of girlfriend, even though they established that the girlfriend might actually like Ward and be crushing on Ward.
Yeah, but then he tries to crush the glass beer bottle. Just smashes.
He doesn't try, Scott. He succeeds.
Well, no, but it's like because in the beginning of the film, it had him crush the beer can, so he's like trying to do the same thing, except this is glass, so it just shatters. It's very weird.
But at first, the Colonel's okay with it. He's like, something's weird here, but whatever. And but Cole is done in, because just like most space people, he doesn't really pay attention to how many bullets are in a gun or if the safety's on.
Well, like most regular people too.
Yeah.
That's true. But guess what? The Alienator's okay. And the Alienator's not really bad. They're good. And that's why they petted the deer. And then they decapitate Cole.
And they found an axe somewhere.
And they decide to do a little baton move with it, and then chop off the head.
And then Cole's head transforms back into Cole. It's not Rick anymore.
It doesn't make any sense. Oh, and he says Rick's body is like a sludge of oil in the woods or something.
Yeah.
They just glaze over it. Yeah, they just glaze over what physically happened to this person who existed moments before.
I'm pretty sure it's not very good if somebody describes you as being reduced to basically a puddle of grease on the ground.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think he's coming back. But it's just kind of oh, that guy, don't worry about that guy.
Yeah, so it's not like he inhabited his body. He just stole his face.
It's like that one scene in Inner Space.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? I rewatched it recently. It's amazing. Where Martin Short, where Martin Short looks like that other guy, just staring at himself in the mirror for a little bit. Maybe you can do that.
Yeah, the cowboy.
The cowboy, yeah, it looks really painful, but
and who's come on, Dede, help me out here, because I know that you'll know people more than some other people. Who is the cowboy?
Oh, it's that guy. He's not playing someone of his own race. I remember that.
Yeah, but come on, because it's tying in. What did we mention earlier that one of the sets looked like a cheap version of?
The Star Trek?
Yeah. The cowboy's played by Robert Picardo, who, of course, was the hologram / doctor on Voyager.
Yeah. Or was it Voyager? Or...
Yeah, it was Voyager.
It was Voyager? Okay.
You guys just left me behind. I don't even know what's going on anymore.
Have you even seen Inner Space?
Nope.
It's amazing.
Okay. Scott, you've got young Meg Ryan, young Dennis Quaid, Martin Short.
As young as he can be.
Yes, by Martin Short standards. Because Martin Short nowadays only looks 5 years removed from Inner Space. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, technically good for him.
Yeah, unless he's on Arrested Development.
That's true. Toss me.
Yeah. Shoot me.
But he ends up accidentally getting injected with a small microscopic device that is actually Dennis Quaid inside a machine that's been shrunk down.
Yes.
And so for the entire film, basically, Dennis Quaid is traversing Martin Short's body while there's some shadowy types who are trying to get a hold of Martin Short because he has this technology inside him.
But you also learn about the human body, and you have like
Yes.
a good number of like Sam Cooke dance parties. Like, it's really fun.
And it ends with a Rod Stewart song.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's good, but it definitely tells you what time the film was made in.
Oh yeah.
So it's fun. It's lots of fun. It shouldn't be lots of fun. Who did that? Why am I blanking on who did that? I want to say it's Donner.
Might be.
It's Joe Dante. I pulled it up.
Oh, Dante?
Yeah.
Okay. It's one of those films you watch and you're like, if this is so wholly fueled by cocaine, and I'm really grateful for it.
Yes. It puts a smile on your face. It shouldn't, but it puts a smile on your face. So
yeah, it's like smarmy, overly confident Quaid and like Martin Short just like yelling a lot and kind of dancing around.
Yeah. 3 years before Alienator and 10 times better special effects.
Yeah.
So that's all I can say.
And a 10 times more ludicrous plot, but it still makes sense. More so compared to Alienator.
Yeah. Of course. That makes sense. So my favorite part is directly after she kills Cole, she then calls it in to the space station saying, hey, I took care of him. It's totally fine. And they're like, well, we need a DNA sample. We need to make sure that you really killed him. So they get a DNA sample and they're like, wait a second. This DNA sample has a weird hook, just like the hook of dun 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 Lund. And it turns out that Lund has a great line where he goes, you didn't just kill the prisoner, but you also killed my only son. And then he pulls out a lightsaber.
And then he's got a lightsaber.
It's a lightsaber. And he's wearing robes. Like, it all checks out.
Oh my god.
And so he and Jan Michael Vincent struggle with the lightsaber for a second, until not only does Jan Michael Vincent decide that he's going to stab him, but he's going to stab him completely through his body, plunging a fist out the backside. Like a bloody fist on the other side.
I had to rewind that the first time I saw it because I was like, wait, what just happened? But yeah, that's what happened. He punches him so hard that he breaks the lightsaber because like it's shooting through and then it just turns off because he's punched his fist the entire way through. It's wonderful and terrible.
Yeah, I'm like, Scott couldn't believe it, but meanwhile I was like, I didn't believe anything at this point.
They also decide that that's not how they should end the film, so they go back down to Earth, and the Alienator is getting ready to leave, and the Colonel says that's it after all that, and you're just out of here. And I'm like, this person was trying to kill you yesterday. You were running away from them, and now you're really sad that they're going because they killed one person to help you out.
They bonded.
The whole time I was thinking that like one of the people was just like at the beginning was like, we should just give her Cole and then she'll go. And I'm like, turns out, yeah, that's just what you should have done.
Yep. And then the Colonel makes the comment that weirds everybody out by saying, that's one hell of a woman on Earth or any other planet.
Earth or outer space, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I mean, it's one or the other. It's a nice sentiment, but it's coming from the Colonel, so I don't really completely trust it.
I also don't like the whole, like, that's one hell of a woman. It's like women who are just like, oh, I'm not like the other girls. And it's like, just don't talk smack about women in general. Like,
well, I mean, they try to, for like the limited number of women that they have in the film, you're able to differentiate and know who each of the women is more so than the men.
Yeah, and PJ sticks up for herself in space.
Yeah, for like 2 seconds. And then there's also the other female tech who's differentiated because she wears different colors of plaid.
And you can't see the top of her boobs.
Yeah. Well, like, that was one of the things, because she had like the lab coat, or then she had the plaid was on, and I was like, okay, is PJ, is this her uniform, or is this what she chose? Because Jan Michael Vincent makes the comment at the very beginning of the movie that she makes a comment about her spending too much time with her boyfriend, and him keeping her up way too much the night before, and kind of hinted like that's what she came into work, because that's what she had on the night before when she was out with her boyfriend.
Oh, I didn't even think about it like that.
Man, the plot thickens.
Yes. Well, I mean, not too thick, because it's alien.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't really see her outfit as office appropriate, but like you pointed out, like everyone's wearing something else different.
Yeah.
It doesn't. None of it really blends together, except for the 5 different guys who again have the weird, like, triangle bandana type thing on the front.
That's just like hot glued onto the front.
Yeah, it's probably just one outfit that they lent to the guys at different points when they were shooting. Okay, this is the most difficult part of the episode, so I do apologize, Dede.
Okay.
At the same time, if you want to skip it, we totally can for this film. But Scott and I sometimes will have a thing that we do that's called How I'd Fix It. And it's basically looking at the film that you watched, and is there a way to try to manage or salvage what's in the film?
So is this like you'd go back and change a particular scene, or like an overall concept for like
whatever you think could save the film, if there was a way to save or fix the film?
That's with the assumption that the film's actually trying to do something and almost gets there, or is like at least heading towards something.
I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of times where we just say this is not fixable.
You can't do it.
Oh, this is difficult. I'm gonna need to think about this, but you guys get talking.
Do you have anything that you want to say, Scott?
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
I think the film needs to pick who the good guys and the bad guys are. I mean,
yes.
I think there's an element of an idea of a guy escaping from space prison and coming down to modern day Earth and getting this group of actual real teenagers entangled in this intergalactic thing. That's exciting and interesting, and the reason that is because it's been done a bunch of times before. But I think you pick which side is actually the bad one, and you stick with that, so you care about either the guy that you're going to rescue or the teens that are brought up. Like the biggest problem is I don't care about any of these characters because I don't like the movie doesn't make you like any of them. It doesn't stop to make you like any of them. Like, you don't like Nick, you don't like Cull. The Alienator herself is basically uncharacterized except for deer petting. And then the commander's an asshole. Like, everyone's just kind of a jerk to each other.
Well, I guess that makes the Alienator, in a way, the most sympathetic character in the film.
Yeah, but then lean into that. I don't know.
Well, no, that's what my thing was going to be, is that take out like the middle sections when you go back to the space station. You don't need it. You can open with it. You can close with it. That's fine. I think you need more of the Alienator. You either need to, because it seems part human, part robot. We don't know how much is which. So if we spent more time with the Alienator to learn their story, or even have something cool where the Alienator's at the end of another job, and is retiring, getting rid of someone else on like some crazy wanted list when they get the call that they need to go in, show them on part of another adventure, that type of thing. If it's going to be called the Alienator, that needs to be the character that we either spend a good amount of time with to see how strong and fearful you should be of them. But at the same time, if you're going to have that softer side, you need to kind of lean into that a little bit more and explore the Alienator. Otherwise, you're like, oh, this is a fun title, but it doesn't really represent anything that's happening in the film.
Okay. I have a totally different stance that kind of plays off both what you guys say.
No, go for it. Let's hear it.
So I think I'm less concerned about good and bad, just because I think it could be a really interesting story to like have it primarily told from like the Earth kids' point of view. Like, this guy shows up, he's got this thing that he can't talk. Like, do you help him or not? You don't know if he's good or bad. Like, it's clear he's a prisoner. Like, what do you do from then? Like, he's being hunted by something. Like, you don't quite, like, I'm fine with the moral ambiguity there, but I think that were they to switch it to be something like that or similar, I just don't know whose story this is.
Yes.
So, like, is it the Earth Kid's story? No. Is it Cole's story? No. Like, is it the Commander's story? No. Is it PJ Soul's story? Not really. Like,
is it the Hunter's story?
Is it the Hunter story? Is it that weird kid who knows a lot about electrons story? Like, I like, Scott's totally right that there's like absolutely no emotional anchor here. And I think that it just needs to figure out like who I'm identifying with, because right now it's just no one.
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Ward, unfortunately.
It's supposed to be Ward?
That's the sense that you get, because you see him with the Hunter, and then you see, or with the Hunters, and then you see the kids bring Cole to him, and then he's the one who lures the Alienator away while they're trying to, stay out of harm's way. So there's a strong focus on Ward when they are on Earth. It's just that they've got all the other hurdles that they have to get to before you even meet him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. And Dede, I like your idea with centering it on one of them, and maybe then not even showing the stuff that happens in space ever. Yeah. Just have this be the story of a game warden who suddenly finds himself in the middle of this thing, and we have no concept of what's going on at all. I think that would work a lot better.
And you could have more of the moral ambiguity and play it up, and definitely have the moral side of it be the compass. If you still have him come from a space prison, but you do the thing that Americanized films always do, where they try to present it in a way that people in America would understand, which would be just put him in an orange jumpsuit. He could be in some space prison that also has orange jumpsuits. And so it works with him having it on Earth. And the only difference that he could still have the collar, and that could be the only thing that differentiates, a normal prison from the space prison. But they don't know that. So that would, if they see him in the orange jumpsuit, it would give more of toying with this is a prisoner. What do we do in this situation? Do we take him at the few words that he speaks and we try to help him out? Or should we be wary because he's probably done something bad and we don't get involved?
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think that could be a really interesting story, and you could still include all the like weird alien and electron stuff. But if it's like so much of the stuff in here is superfluous, and I think we're all kind of getting at that. Like, the whole like, this guy's my son, like there's a bunch of hunters, like it's just, unless it's actually at all relating back to someone that we like give a shit about, like, or even like a cool thing, or even like good gore effects, like what's the point?
Yes. Yeah. And it's at 19. It was made in 1990. That's the interesting thing, because it feels like a film that was made in like 83, 84.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like we don't quite have the money, and special effects haven't gotten to the point where we can really go, hog wild with gore and stuff like that. And it's like, no, you're in 90. People have been making crazy gory films for the last couple of years, 86, 87 really get into all kinds of cool practical effects that people are able to do on the cheap or on the high. So by 1990 in a, direct-to-video film, you could have some of those, even if you just decide to have it, for 2 or 3 times. And they do have the cool burn effect with the doctor, who I don't know if we mentioned it, but his name is, did you guys write it down?
Oh, the doctor? No.
Dr. Burnside.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yep. That's the level of the writers.
Yeah. I just pulled up a list of other horror films from 1990 to give it some context.
Ooh,
right? I know. So it's like Exorcist 3, Jacob's Ladder, Misery, Nightbreed, Tremors, Arachnophobia, It, Gremlins 2, Child's Play 2, Flatliners.
Wow.
Graveyard Shift. Like, this was a good year for horror.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call the film a horror, but still just talking about but think of the effects that are in those movies compared to this.
Hardware, Frankenhooker. Sorry, it just keeps going.
Oh, that's okay.
But no, I want to make everything into a horror film, so I'm like slowly nudging it that way. Yeah,
it works. I mean, it's easily for VOD in 1990 you had a lot of horror and sci-fi, so they start to blend over. It works.
I was also Troll 2. Sorry.
Oh man, even Troll 2 I think has some better effects than this film.
People are at least still talking about Troll 2.
I try to move away from it.
I don't really do schlocky stuff, so.
Okay. Does anybody have any final thoughts before we vote on the film? Anything that we didn't cover?
No.
All right.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I wanted to get it in there as I was watching this. I just had the phrase "How dare you" come into my head, but I was asking that of you too, not of the filmmaker.
Yeah, this is only one that you've had to do. Scott's done 30 of these now.
I'm so sorry, you guys.
Don't apologize to me. Seriously, as I tell everybody, apologize to Scott.
Yeah, Adrian loves this shit. I don't watch bad movies until now.
No,
I screened Daddy's Home 2 this week. Exactly. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
That's a
it
hell
was
of
a very
thing.
painful experience. I enjoyed watching this movie than that film. So
wow.
So Daddy's Home got a sequel, but Step Brothers has yet to get a sequel.
they tried. I mean, that's a whole different.
It's a whole different thing.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stories behind that you can easily look into online. And they were going to try to make the film, and then everybody went off to make several other films, and they were going to do a rap album, and then that fell through.
Still not into it. Yeah.
Okay, but for Alienator, we now come to the voting part. Of course, as we mentioned at the beginning, not guilty means that the film gets to go free. People are able to enjoy it. We're basically saying it is a bad, terrible film, but there's enough redeeming or ridiculous or funny qualities that other people should see it. If it's guilty, that means it's getting shot into the Phantom Zone. It is never to exist for human consumption ever again. So let's start with Scott.
Why you gotta start with me? This is harder than I like. This is obviously a bad movie, but there were parts of it I had fun with. I laughed a lot during this movie. I'm gonna say not guilty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dede, what about you? Unless things sound like they're falling apart.
Oh
maybe.
no, it's guilty. This is a piece of shit.
Okay.
There's all the fun, weird stuff you can get from other films in the same fun, weird way that it just are so much better use of your time.
I've got to agree with Dede. I'm going to say guilty. I think there's plenty of other films that we've watched that are more entertaining. It almost feels like this movie, because there's the points where it tries to seem like it knows that it's a bad movie and tries to make fun of itself, but it can't, because the filmmakers are still really bad filmmakers. That kind of deadens it, as opposed to a film where the people are trying hard and they're making all these mistakes, and that it just has a weird life of its own. Like we were mentioning, The Room. And The Room, is people earnestly trying to make a film, and everything's going wrong on it. And yet it takes on this weird, strange life of its own where you're able to enjoy it and meet it on a weird level. Whereas Alienator, you're just like, no more, please.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted by The Room. I'd watch this movie over The Room again.
And you can, because for those people who did watch the movie and did enjoy it, even though it's going into the Phantom Zone, I'm not sure how this happened, but Scream Factory put it out.
What?
On Blu-ray. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Scream Factory put out The Alienator on Blu-ray.
They send me so much crap. They do. I'm like, I love them as a company and God bless them, but they sent me a Blu-ray of Frogs, and I was like, I don't like crappy movies, you guys. And they're like, are you going to review this? I'm like, absolutely not. I would not give this any attention.
That'd be great if somewhere in a pile of movies that you completely forgot about is an unopened copy of The Alienator.
I'm actually looking at my stack right now. It very well could be.
I hope so. I hope so much.
That'd be great. That'd be great. We do have next week's episode picked out. I got a message from Liz Nelson, who is going to be our next host, or next guest host, and she chose the 1986 film Spookies. I'm mentioning this now because I don't know if she's going to be listening to this, but interesting tidbit about this next movie is that it's actually two films. They started out by making a film that they had a script and everything. They had a budget. They had special effects. They filmed half of the movie, and the budget fell out, and they ended up kind of having it sit on the shelf for like a year or two. Got more funding, used a new script to complete the rest of the film.
Well, I can't wait to watch that one.
Oh, it sounds like you guys are in for a treat.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Dede, we wanted to thank you very, very much for coming on and being the first guest for what we're going to be doing for the next couple months. Where can the good people find you on the internet?
Oh, the good people. So I usually put up a link of anything that I've written up on my Twitter feed, which is Dede Crimmins. That's DEDECRIM. Other than that, you can usually find me on filmthrills.com, roomorg.com, or A Birth Movies Death.
Perfect. Scott, where can we find you?
I am also on the Twitter with 280 whole characters now.
Ooh.
Which is
I think
everybody has that. I'm not special. Yeah. It's at Scott Daly 85. That's DALY.
And then you, of course, also you can do a plug for your other much more popular podcast.
Oh yeah, I do so many different podcasts. Most of them are on the same feed as this, so if you're listening to this, it's all the same. But
I mostly meant that one. I mean, if you want to, pimp all your shows, that's fine. But I meant that one that's doing well. So
yeah, well, I don't know if this is the same audience for that. We're doing a critique and analysis of a web serial called Worm. The podcast is We've Got Worm. It's a Dumb and Dumber reference. Nobody gets that. Nobody understands my Dumb and Dumber reference, but that's what it is.
Because you're choosing like the most obtuse one.
Wait, why?
Because you go and never mind. I'm not even going to do it. I was going to do a line, but that was going to be the one that you weren't going to be able to get. So, yeah. But yeah, he's got another podcast. Listen to it. It's good. It's got a big audience, and he's got a successful Patreon. So, listen to his show. Watch that. Check it out. I can be found on Twitter as well as everybody else at Adrian Torres, and you can find my writing at boomhowdy.com. Looking at the time right now, and so my review for Daddy's Home 2 should be up on the site right now. It's not very nice. Scott has read pieces of it. And so he can attest to the fact that I don't think that was very nice.
Adrian did not like the movie.
Yeah.
Shocker.
It shines through. It's not, I will be interested, Dede, to hear if you talk to anybody who sees Daddy's Home 2. So please reach out to me and let me know. Because I'm very interested to see the discussions that people have about Mel Gibson in this film.
Yeah, I've seen some murmurs on Twitter. I don't think it was press screened, or if it was, I ran screaming the other way. But I'll let you know if I actually hear from someone who's seen it.
It's hanging out at a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes right now.
Most cities, not everybody knows this, but because I'm able to always see the schedule of everything that's going on in town, even if I'm not going to a certain particular screening. In most cities, the night that Daddy's Home 2 had its press screening / open screening, it was the same night and the same time as Murder on the Orient Express.
Interesting.
So they knew that most reviewers would go to that instead.
Yeah.
I would hope so.
Yes.
Yeah. They did that recently here. They had the Bad Moms Christmas against Thor Ragnarok. So that was, a huge moral choice on my part, but I somehow was able to choose correctly, I think.
And you saw Bad Moms too, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's what I was getting at. I didn't want to say it, but
no,
me and those Bad Moms.
I don't. That sounds like a different time that we'll have you on. All right. Thank you again so much. And you guys, make sure to check in next week as well. Until then, bye.
I don't need no predictions. I don't listen to fate. I'm a cold soul survivor. And I've been known not to wait. In a land of confusion, no one's ready to face. If it's love that you're after, then you're in the wrong place.